This talk is going to be about how to create a secure app in under 1 hour, so very fast, with React Native and Firebase. Before I'm going to show you how to do that, I'm just going to introduce myself very briefly. As I've already told you, I've been only working as a software developer since about 2 years. I have actually majored in linguistics, in general linguistics, at the LMU in Munich. I've been working, and I'm currently still working at Horizon Alpha, which is a software development company and IT consultant company based in Munich, in Germany. We have about 25 employees right now, but we're constantly growing. And we are experts for React and React Native and for cloud-based backend. So we're working with Azure and Google Cloud and AWS. For example, I have a certificate as I'm a certified developer associate for AWS, which is pretty cool. And I'm currently the project lead for a language learning app called LearnMatch. We have about 300,000 active users and more than 1.5 million downloads. And yeah, it's a really cool app. If you want to learn a foreign language, you can have a look at it. We recently included our really cool Lino mascot, and it's a really nice app, and it's really fun working here. Okay, so what is the process of creating an app? Step 1 is, of course, I have a great idea for an app. For example, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, well, what about I could create an app for writing a to-do list? I bet that nobody's ever had this idea before. And I bet there are no apps like that in any of the stores. Of course not. Okay, so after I have this great idea for a very new app, I do a rough draft of my very cool new app. So my app is going to consist of 2 screens. One is the user login screen, where the user can put in his username and a password and click on login. And then if the username and password is correct, he will then be shown the to-do list screen, where he can see his to-dos and add a new to-do. So he can write a to-do in here and then add it to the list. And then he can log out again and maybe log in with a different user ID or something like that. Okay, so creating the UI for this is very easy with React Native, as probably all of you know. But there are 2 main points that are not as easily solved as the UI design. Those 2 problems or issues are, I need a login mechanism and I need a backend. Of course, we could save the data locally, but well, if I assume that this app is going to go viral and everyone is going to use it, and maybe some users are going to put in hundreds and hundreds of to-dos, and then they lose their device and they want to restore their data, that's of course not possible when I store it locally. So I have to have some kind of server as a backend. I could, of course, use the secret server in my secret basement, but if I want to sell the app to millions and millions of users, my secret server in my secret basement is not going to be enough. And of course, I'm also responsible for that server. I have to constantly update and maintain it, and that's very much work. So I decide to use a cloud-based solution. So there are many solutions in all 3 major clouds that can help us with both login and backend. There is AWS, there is Azure, but the solution I'm going to show you here is Google Cloud's Firebase, which is, as I've already said, only one of many possible solutions for both. Okay, Google Firebase. There is a React Native library for Google Cloud Firebase, which I can add to my React Native project. And it has a solution for the login problem with the auth library. And it also has a solution for the backend problem with, for example, the Firestore. Okay, so what am I talking about? If you've never used Firebase before, I want to show you the console of my Firebase project, which I've already created for my cool new app. So I hope you can see this. Yes. Okay, so this is the console of my Firebase project. And there you can see that Firebase offers many different kinds of services. For example, the authentication for the login. Then we have two different kinds of database, the Firestore and the real-time database. We have a file storage system where we can store images and audio files, videos, whatever. Then another cool thing for apps is the analytics part. So we can analyze user retention and any kinds of things. And the other cool thing I want to mention that Firebase offers you is the A/B testing. So if you have a new feature in your app, for example, a different kind of to-do list UI, you can create an A/B test for that, and Firebase automatically manages the A/B test. So it shows one of the solutions to 50% of your users and the other one to the other 50%. And it also analyzes the retention time and other analytic measurements and provides you with an analysis of which one of the versions is actually better. Okay, so I'm going to use the authentication and the Firestore for my app. In the Firestore, you can have collections, and in a collection, you have a document, and in this document, you might have another collection. So this is structured like this. I have a collection called to-dos where I store everything. Then I have documents that have the user ID of the authentication as a ID here. And then I have a list of to-dos as a collection beneath this document. And there we have several to-dos for this particular user. For example, drink beer or don't panic, which is very important. Okay, so this is how the Firestore looks like in the console. Okay, so this was a very quick overview of the Firebase console. Now let's go back to my presentation. Okay, so we decide that we use this solution for our app, the login with the auth and the backend with the Firestore. How does that look in the React Native app? Of course, I have some code snippets for you. The Firebase auth process is very, very easy. So for example, if I have a on login function in my React Native app, I have a login email and a login password. Then I can just use the sign in with email and password function of the auth module. Of course, I have to import it first. That's clear, I think. And then we can have a catch error, which I just console log here because it's only a draft of the app. Yeah, and that was it. It's very easy to use and very easy to put into your app. Then you have the whole login process done. Of course, you can also put in a registration process, which should maybe come first because you have to register in order to log in. Yeah, I skipped that part. Okay, the other code snippet I want to show you is about the Firestore. For example, you can add data to the Firestore using the Firestore library, which of course you have to import. You have to tell this module the name of the collection that you want to add something to, then the name of the document, which, as you might remember, was the user ID of the user that is logged in, and then the name of the collection beneath this document. And then we add some document to this collection, which is in this case is the text of the active to do. So the thing I put in that input field and the timestamp. Yeah, and then we can do something else. When this is done, for example, we can console log the success and we can catch the error again. Okay, so this is very, very simple as well. I want to add something here, so I switch back to the Firestore real quick. So to be able to make this API call here very secure, you can use the so-called Firestore rules. For example, here I use a rule that only allows access to a particular document if the access function includes the name of the collection to-dos, then the user ID that is logged in, and then again the collection name to-dos. So only if that is the case, which is the case in the code snippet, then the app can read or write in this collection and document. This is very handy. This is very sophisticated. So this is just a very, very short and quick view on these rules. There are many, many versions of this, and you can really allow only specifically those calls and those read and write processes that you want to allow and deny all others. But this is really very handy and makes the app more secure. Go away. Okay. So I've shown you some code snippets, but now of course you want to have a look at the app itself and more code, as I guess. So let me just close this and get my code here and my emulator here. Okay, so this is what my app looks like. It's not very sophisticated. I only have an app.js, no components. I have some state variables, and I have this onLogin function that I've shown you in the code snippet. I have a onLogout function that uses the sign out function of the auth module. I have the onAddToDo function that uses the Firestore addData function. And then I render the two screens. So for example, I could log in with a very cool test email address and a very safe password. And then I'm here. That's very easy. Then I can put in some to do, edit, and there we are. And now this is also stored in the Firestore. Then I can log out again. In with about 5 minutes time into my app. And I can store my data in the Firestore of Firebase. Okay, back to our slides. Okay, so now let's be a little more sophisticated. Let's say that we want to store the login info. So we don't want to put the email address and the password in all the time. I want to store it and somehow use the stored login data to automatically log in again. Sorry. So we could store it in the async storage, but the async storage, as you might already know, is not very secure. Of course, it's sandboxed, but on a jailbroken device, you can access the data just like that. And this little pirate here could steal your secret keys, your secret password, your login data, and so on. One of several possible solutions for this kind of problem, for storing sensitive data on the local device, is a library called React Native Keychain. So with this library, you can store your login data securely. This library uses native solutions on the devices. So it uses the key store on Android devices and the keychain on iOS devices. And this library, again, is very easy to use. This is why I mention it here. So, for example, if I want to store my login credentials, I can just use the set internet credentials of the keychain library. I give my server some name, and then I put in the login mail and the login password here. And I can retrieve this data again on the same easy way. So I just use the get internet credential function of the keychain library. I just tell that function the name of the server I used here, and it gives me the login mail and the login password. Okay, so how did I implement this in my app? Switching again. Okay, I have to use the other branch. Okay, so I added some code here. I added the React Native Keychain library. And I added a onLogin with stored credentials function and a switch that you can see here where I can tell the app to store the user credentials or to not store the user credentials. And in my onLogin function, when the switch is set on store user credentials, I can use the set internet credentials function of the keychain and save the login information securely. So, for example, our beloved email address again, and the very safe password. Okay, so I put the switch on store user credentials, and I log in. So I put in some more to-dos. Okay, and now if I log out again, the email and the password is gone, but I have stored it on my device. So if I click on log in with stored credentials, I can do that. So this is again very easy to implement and very, very handy in your app. It's safe and secure, and yeah. The main point is that it's really easy to use. Okay, so what did I want to add here? Oh yeah, as a side note, to draw up a example app very easily is very easily done with the where can I show this? Yeah, well, with the React Native paper library. So you have several elements here that you can just use for creating this very nice UI. Okay, so I wish I could ask you if you have some questions here, because I have the feeling that that was a little bit quick, but yeah, with the online conference, it's not easily done. So let me sum everything up. So if you want to create a secure app in under 1 hour with React Native, I recommend that you use Firebase, because Firebase offers you solutions both for the login and the backend. With the Firebase auth module, you can create a safe and very easy login process, and also registration process. With the Firebase Firestore, you have a very easy to use database for your backend. And you can make sure that the access to the Firestore is secure with using the Firestore rules that I shown you in the console of the Firebase. And if you want to store sensitive data on your device, I recommend you use something like React Native Keychain, which uses the native modules on the devices and is also very easy to implement. Okay, so this was what I was going to show you. Thank you very much for listening in. And if you have any further questions or comments or suggestions, feel free to contact me. Have a look at our website at Horizon Alpha. Write an email, contact me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for your patience. And I hope my excitement didn't show too much. Yeah. Okay, so I think now we have some time for questions. Thank you. Nobody there. Okay, nobody's here. I have to entertain you.
Sing a song. Tommy.
Nobody can hear me.
Nobody wants to hear you. I'm bad. Yeah, wrong.
Okay, welcome back to Geekle Cross-Platform Mobile Development Summit. And I hope that, yeah, I can see Katarina live. So let's bring you back.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was too fast.
Yeah, you're actually too fast and too autonomous. First of all, I would like to ask you, so is this really your first conference ever?
Yes.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I can see like the way how you have prepared. and your presentation and like your approach to the communication flow and so on. So probably my first question, and to be very quick, how did you learn all these soft skills and presentation and communication skills? It is important because there's plenty of developers that they grow up in technical terms, but they don't develop these soft skills, and then they struggle for them when they would like to become seniors or team leads and so on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I've been working as a teacher for several years.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been teaching mathematics and also Latin and English. And so I think that's where I learned how to, well, all these soft skills, how to communicate. Yeah.
That's perfect. Actually,
Yeah.
teaching is always great. Now let's. Okay, I'm not sure if I can see any questions yet. Probably our audience still didn't follow you completely. I mean, couldn't take your speed. So one of
Yeah,
the
I'm
questions
sorry.
that
When I'm excited, I speak too fast.
that's fine. That's completely fine. Okay, one of my first question was, so you actually described a way how to create an application using Firebase mostly and so on. So why you choose this particular setup? I can understand that this is probably one of the most essential ones. So maybe you could recommend a few approaches to the initial setup and compare them.
So I've presented this approach because I'm most familiar with it, because we also use it in our LearnMatch, in our language learning app. I also am a very big fan of AWS, and I think that with especially with AWS Amplify, you can set up your app in about the same amount of time and the same ease. So I think that's a really very good possibility as well.
Okay.
I like Firebase very much because it's really very well. You have this one console, and then you can see all your services, and it's really easy to set up the services here. It's only a few clicks, and then you have a Firestore, or maybe you can add a real-time database and so on. So it's really very easy, and the overview is very good. But I'm very sure that with AWS you can do about the same.
That's true. And actually, I've worked with a few mobile projects, and we've been using Firebase all the time, even though we've been using different technologies on top. I mean, not only React Native, but also Xamarin and Ionic, stuff like that. Now, we've got a question. Now, I really think that this guy deserves a special badge, like the most active follower ever. Can we create a backup from Firebase database? Or I would even evolve a little bit this question. So not only create backup once, but also maybe establish a routine or an automated process of taking these backups just without manual interaction anymore.
I haven't set that up yet, but I'm pretty sure that you can. So there are several backup strategies with Google Cloud, and as Firebase is a Google Cloud service, I think I've seen some strategies where you can manually do a backup and also automatically back up your data.
Right. Okay. So one more, or maybe probably a few more questions. Let's remove these questions. So I would say, so we start an application, right? We start building an application, and it has its own purpose. So what would you recommend to any junior, especially when they are setting up their own projects, for example, for portfolio or something like that, how did you do that first? Because there's plenty of cases when you actually would like to have a few apps in your portfolio, maybe on your local Git repository, in order to get your first job. So what would you recommend in that case?
Well, that depends on what the purpose of the app is and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, I know this question is quite hard, and I'll try to
Yeah.
bring some clarity to it. So usually I imagine myself taking your guide and starting creating my own application. So I would choose any purpose for it. For example, I would probably build a very simple application app that has the login screen, and then it has some data flow that I would like to follow. And then it makes something with that data, transform into some final result. So I would probably need to describe a few simple user journeys. And that actually represents probably the biggest part of purposes of simple apps. So let's imagine that I have that application. Would it be, I don't know, a fitness tracker, or just a schedule to do not forget to give water to my plants, stuff like that. So let's say we did it. And now my next step is to design to create the internal flow, or at least to choose what technologies to use for my simple app and how to build it and to put it in the repository. Just like a quick story about it.
I don't know how to answer that question. So
no worries. I would go even into a different way. So you have a fresh story. You have a fresh story of becoming a developer into this technology, right? It is just 18 months. So you have a fresh experience. Tell us a story how it happened.
Well, my advantage was that the app I'm working on already existed. So I had a look at the code of that app, and I tried to understand what the different components do. So in my opinion, the structure of an app is very, very important. You have to really understand how the different components work together. You have to think in a very structured kind of way. So you have to know which component is navigated to at what point in the app, and the different ways that the user flow can go. And I actually wrote that down on paper. So in my opinion, the most important tool for a software developer is pencil and paper, and maybe an eraser. And I drew some sketches about how the different user flows work. So I would definitely recommend that. Draw up some diagrams about the different kinds of user flows, then add the different components that are involved in the different flows. And then if the code already exists, look it up in the code, or if it doesn't exist, make a plan on how to structure the code itself. So this is also a very, very important part, in my opinion. In my example app, I didn't do that because it was very, very simple. But
really.
but it's very important to structure the code. So put the code into different components, put the components into different folders, label the folders with what it does. For example, I use a folder with the label helpers, or a folder with basic components that I reuse all the time. For example, a button that I use, that I create and use at several points of the app. And to structure the code in your IDE the same way that you've structured it in your plan, in your draft, is very, very important. Because otherwise, if the app grows and grows, then at some point you just don't know what you're doing anymore.
That's true, and that's very fair for every project. For myself as a project manager, I know how important it is, especially when you grow up with your service and you have no track on what's there anymore. So now you answered my question very well, and now I would like to bring up this advice that the main thing that you said is, in order to understand how the things are built, first of all, learn. So look at how it is built right now, then try to find out the logic in it, and then try to describe it using a pencil and paper. And you're right, because it enables your psychomotoric memory. And then next time when you would like to visualize or to remember how it was built, what was the logic there, your body will help you with like everything that you drew before will get faster into your memories. So that's really a good way to learn how it works in general. So Dankeschön, it was really very nice. I hope
Thank you.
you will get back there for the Q&A session in 40
I
minutes.
definitely will.
Perfect. Then thank you and see you soon.
Okay, see you.
See ya.